Hi, this is Reasons Are Several, episode 223. This is a weekly podcast where sometimes I just need a break from Neil. My name is Matt. With me is a special guest, Jay. How's it going, Jay?
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, yo.
You are a prolific podcaster. Would you say?
I don't know if I'd say that, but I love hearing it.
Well, you have a bunch of shows. You have 7 Days a Geek, Podcasting 101, WTF, Smodcast, Deconstructing Dad, Serial, Better Call Saul. Did I miss any?
Right, yeah, those are all mine. Some produce better than others, but yes, I am. All of those are mine.
Well, and many know you as the Angry Ginger, which I don't have. In all my dealings with you, you've been very pleasant. So I frankly don't understand the moniker. Is that an ironical name?
Well, it came from the early days of, I don't know if you've ever heard the Last Podcaster Standing, but it came from the early, actually before that, I was being called the Angry Ginger just before we started podcasting. And it was a joke in itself because I'm usually full of like, okay, Grant, the old co-host, one of my old best friends, he would always like, you're just a ray of fucking sunshine, aren't you? Like he'd get mad at me all the time because I was like always filled with positivity. But if you can get me just right, like there is a level of anger in me that no one should ever witness. So the Angry Ginger moniker kind of came from it, and it started off as like him trying to like burn me, like there was like maybe like a racist slur toward me or something. I don't know. He was just trying to find something that got under my skin, and it might have for just a moment, but after that I just kind of ran with it. That was kind of funny.
Well, it's funny too because I have a somewhat similar deal where there's a group of guys I hang out with. I know them from Seattle when we all would get together and watch English soccer. And one night I was at the bar with them late and I just was blitzed. And I was.
Are you going to describe them as your white friends?
They're my white friends. Yeah, white guys. No, so they. You listen. That
conversation cracked me up.
That was pretty funny. One night I was just blitzed and I was going off on a certain member of the extended family that I won't get into here. Okay. And the next day they were just like, "Dude, you're angry, Maddie." And I was, and it was the only time I've really ever gone off. But even to this day, I'm referred to now as Angry Maddie. Come on, I'm a nice guy.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Like everything, I think both of our exchanges has always just been very pleasant. And anything I've listened to you, I've never heard you like get too far into a rant or any type of anger.
Well, Neil certainly paints me into that corner a lot. He tries to get me riled up and tries to put me into that spot of like I'm this angry, like bitter guy. But I think overall I'm pretty positive.
I would agree.
Yeah. I was going to say about Podcasting 101, which you were kind enough to have me on back in January, I believe it was, season 4, episode 5.
4. Yeah.
Yeah. Was a lot of fun. So if you haven't heard that episode or that show, and especially if you're a podcaster, I know a lot of podcasters listen to the show. Awesome show. You should go out and check it out. It's got a lot of great input and kind of real world examples and stuff like that. And we had a great conversation. So definitely go check that out. I just want to give a plug for ourselves there.
Do yourself a service and go listen to 101
That's
for sure.
I wanted to talk real quickly. It's been covered probably ad nauseum on both of our shows, but just about how we met. And that is back in 2015 when we were introduced by friends and just instant fireworks. No, I'm just kidding. You were in Portland with a bunch of other podcasters for Rose City Comic Con, which I didn't attend, but I obviously lived here. So when you guys all came out, we got together. I think it was on the Thursday night when you guys were out.
You were the first night, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So It was a lot of fun. It was funny because I only knew a few people from the group, I think, at that point, but we all became kind of fast friends, and it was a really great night and experience. But it was funny because I think we talked about this maybe on Pod 101, but the first words you and I spoke to each other.
Yeah, you remembered this. I didn't remember this.
If somebody's heard this, sorry, but Henno of Crazy Life and Gotham Lights podcast, he and I were sitting in the bar waiting for you guys to show up. It was funny too because you guys were periscoping it, so like we could tell where you were. And then you walked right by the front door and went to like the gambling place next door.
Yeah, it was a small little like biker bar or something. It looked like.
Yeah, and I think they do like horse racetrack betting, you know?
Okay.
And so it's a bit of a seedy crowd in there. And so I said, oh, let me go grab him. And I go out to grab you guys, and I walk outside, and then right then you come back out, and you're the first one out, and you look at me, and I go, hey, podcast nerds. And you looked at me like, who's this asshole? I think for a second you didn't realize, like, oh yeah, there's a guy meeting us. Like, that's probably him. So you just looked at me.
I think I was just stunned. Like,
yeah.
Because you knew more about us than, like, just walking out of a restaurant bar and someone just calls you out, and you're like,
right.
Well, what the hell? And you were one of the ones that, like, I never really communicated with. I think
right.
There were a few back and forths in the chat room that we all had shared, but other than that, like, I had no idea anything about you.
Exactly.
So yeah, just a strange guy standing in front of me, like, picking us up.
Well, yeah, you certainly had never seen me before. I knew what you looked like, so it was easier for me to pick you out. But yeah, that was kind of funny. But that was an awesome time. We had such a great time. I wish I could have been there more nights, but I had like a trip I had to go away on the next day. But that led to you having me on Podtoberfest that October.
Yes.
That was the first one, right?
Yeah, you were on the. You've been on all of them, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was the first one. Did you want to tell people about Podtoberfest a little bit? Those who don't know, because you got it coming up again in another couple months.
It's an annual podcast marathon that we do. Really, the idea is like celebrate podcasting and podcasters. Like, I like to have, friends of the show, friends I've made, other podcasters. We'll either do interviews or we do a little bit of something with their show, or they just guest on ideas of ours, and we just sort of podcast as long as we can. And one of the things that we do with it is we try to raise money for the year because, like you had said, I've got multiple podcasts, which means multiple publishing fees, hosting fees, the website fees, all of that stuff. It gets a little bit expensive. So if we can like take a little bit of that and throw it back into the show, it makes it a little easier for me to produce the rest of the year. So that's sort of what we do.
Yeah, the podcasting fees nickel and dime you to death. You feel like, oh, it's not that bad. The hosting's only this much a month, and then the website's this much, and but all of a sudden you realize it adds up pretty quickly for a hobby.
Well, especially when you have to renew the websites, that's where they really get you, and then the hosting gets more expensive and everything. So yeah, I think right now I have to look at the spreadsheet Dougie and I have, but I know the first year we started putting all the Monkey Poo Studios stuff together. Before, like, I had to renew all the websites. I think we were at about $1,600 a year, something like that.
Yeah.
And that's like not internet costs or anything else.
Right.
That was just like websites and publishing and all that. Yeah. So it's kind of, and then like, every once in a while you need to upgrade some equipment. And so, yeah, it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, no, but it's a great event. It's a lot of fun. You get such a like broad smattering of people and topics.
Yeah.
And the planning that goes into it is just incredible. There's so much, done months in advance to, kind of put that show together. I'm excited that you're going to be doing 24 hours straight again, because you will be doing 24 hours straight. Have you decided on that yet?
I've not bit the bullet on it yet. I was talking to Cole the other night, and I was like, well, Matt and a few other people are kind of itching toward the 24 hours. And he's like, dude, I don't know if I can do 24 hours. And I start laughing. I was like, you know what? You go as long as you can. And then I'm sure we'll have people that can fill in different spots or whatever. But if I can make that happen, I'm leaning toward it. Although did you see the poll I put out last week? I think what won was try something new.
Oh, okay. And I didn't see the final result.
That was curious to me, but then I thought, every year we've tried something new, so maybe people are just like, oh, give it a go on something else. So I don't know if they just met the time frame or the content itself. Hopefully not, because it's difficult coming up with all those hours in itself, let alone and a lot of them are similar but different. But I'm not like reaching for anything. I think you don't want to change what's broken, and I think it definitely works every year. So
yeah, I mean, I think I think we talked about this before. There was a different element the year after when it was broken up into 2 12-hour chunks, because you had so many people there, and it made more sense to take more time to do stuff on site because you had that whole crew there. Whereas the first year, when it's just 3 of you and a lot of people online and stuff like that, it kind of felt like you were, hunkered down in a bunker just trying to like get through these 24 hours, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the co-host Grant, TK1, really struggled with the late hours. There's a point where he laid down. I have my favorite parts of each one. Yeah. I have these moments that just like sit in my brain, and like you and Dave calling in to help us out when he was laying on the floor, like he was so nauseous from like fatigue. Because I mean, podcasting for 24 hours is mentally exhausting.
Well, what was your break every hour? Like a minute, 2 minutes?
Yeah, like just to reset the show,
Yeah,
and then
right.
we'd go. And thankfully, like Bill came in and actually helped produce in the studio. It was the first time I ever met Bill. And Grant and Bill had become a little bit of friends, so it was, they were on a better page than I was. But just having him there, he'd have all the notes printed out. He'd be like, "This is what we're doing next. This is," and like we had a good idea, but like when you're in the shuffle, like you need someone that's there. And by the third year, this year or last year's third year show, it was just like Cole and I, a lot of like the Shumway group, the core group, weren't involved. So it really was like, we had a chat room where some people helped out. For the most part, though, I had to throw everything together myself and build the notes. Dougie helped out quite a bit in the background. But yeah, it's you got to really be on the ball when you're doing the show live. And so my resets were a little bit longer. I think we were reset like 5 or 7 minutes, and I'd be like, "Cole, this is what we're doing." I kind of run through the show real quick, and we go. But yeah, it's but I love it. Like it takes a lot out of you, but I'm so glad that it's something that we continue to keep doing every year.
Yeah, I mean, a good 5-minute reset is totally acceptable when you're doing that many hours in a row. You might need that.
No one seemed to bitch in the chat room, so I think it was good for everybody.
They need their own reset. The chat room people.
Well, I mean, like we realized we went, I don't know how many hours, because that was one of the things the first year was Grant's wife was there and Bill, so we could get food brought to us, or they were remembering to feed us.
Right.
Like when me and Cole were just at the table, we're going. There were times where like all of a sudden we're like, shit, we haven't ate yet.
Yeah.
So I have to work that in a little bit better. I think we just did an episode recently where I ate while we were recording, just to, like as a gimmick.
I remember that.
And I think there's probably going to be at least an hour or two, depending on how long we go, where you're just going to have to listen to a little bit of smacking.
Well, that's just the theme for that hour. It's the lunch break.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll just work the meal in. Everyone gets to eat.
Right. Then you have your happy hour later. Just don't drink too much, because, drinking and podcasting can be trouble.
Happy hour always works out.
As you had to experience last year when Neil and Annalise and I called in.
I did.
Oh, man. We were on fire.
Is that what we're calling it?
I'm saying on fire like we were out of control, not like we were great. I mean, we were just
it was
a mess.
Disorganized chaos.
Yeah. The best part was, like you had said to me, I think recently, was when at some point you're sitting there and it's just you talking to Annalise, and you're like, "Where did they go? Oh, they both went to the bathroom."
Yeah,
together.
Together.
Oh man, that was a lot of fun. Well, I look forward to it. So, and what's the date again?
I think we're looking at October 7th. I think it's the same as last year. I think it's October 7th. Let me look real quick here. The 6th, Saturday the 6th.
Saturday the 6th, okay.
If it's just one day. Well, either way, we might do like last year we did a little Friday pre-show, and then we'll go into Saturday. I don't know if anyone's coming out here at this point, so and that really depends on what the schedule will be, whether we do 2 days or 1 day or a full streak or what, depending on, because I loved the second year at Grant's. I loved having people over at the house, and it just hasn't been something that's been able to happen last year or this year. I've invited some people, but it's expensive to come out, and I don't blame people for, like, they could just jump on Skype. It's a lot easier, and they don't have to spend any money. So, yeah. But it was a good time actually having everyone over at the house, and like Portland, it was just getting to be around those people, and you don't get to do that much, so it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it's hard to pull off to get that many people. I'm amazed that they had that many people come in from so many different places. I mean, several from out of the country, and so it was a cool opportunity to get all those people in the same room. And I'm sure the energy level in that room was real high, especially when everybody was participating, but also people could kind of check out as needed. So that was, probably helpful as well. I mean, I know that you and Grant were always in the seats, but for the most part, but anyway.
Yep.
Well, I look forward to that. Every year when I am on, we typically talk about something Star Wars related. We do. And usually, or at least actually every year since you started, we had a movie coming up 2 months later. There was always the next movie was coming out, and now we don't. So now we've got 15 or 16 months to go to the next movie till episode 9's out, which is a bummer.
It is. I'm a big fan of the yearly release, and I was hoping they'd go to 2 years. So I don't know what Disney's planning on right now, but I don't think anyone's got Star Wars fatigue as much as
Marvel.
Like Marvel is proof that you can have more than one movie a year, but The Last Jedi really that got under people's skin.
It did, and I wanted to get into that a little bit because I think that caused a ripple effect that is unfortunate. Because like you, I think it would be great to have that Christmas time release and then an early summer release for another one. just to kind of offshoot, the main storyline with some spin-offs, whatever. Just a good way to balance those out and keep us, going on content. But so they actually just started filming episode 9, by the way, last week. I think it was on Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. So that first shot. And the casting was recently announced, the official casting. So I just want to run through that a little bit and just kind of talk about maybe what that might mean for the plot, and also, especially with some of those new characters that they've added. Because I know you have some theories, which I kind of wanted to go through a little bit. So obviously, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Adam Driver, all those people are back. I'm glad that, I hope that, because Lupita Nyong'o is back, and I really was a little disappointed in episode 8 that she didn't have a bigger role, because I like that character quite a lot.
I really do too.
I'm hoping she has a bigger role in this one. She was kind of just a nice cherry on top of episode 7. I really liked her in that movie.
Yeah, she was like probably one of my favorite new characters that were introduced into the series was her. And she was, even her scene, like a lot of people were like, they didn't like the video Skype call thing or whatever, but I thought it was kind of entertaining. I really like that character. And I think she's got a lot of knowledge as to Rey and the Force. And I think now that like Leia's gone and. Yeah,
I think it's almost like they didn't have a good spot for her in 8 and just were like, we got to do something. We have to include her in some fashion. So they it seemed like they kind of threw it in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Whereas I would have liked to have seen a little more developed, part of that movie that had her in it. Although given the short timeline that movie took place in, maybe there just wasn't that opportunity.
It was hard to develop anybody, really.
It was. As far as the other returning people, so Mark Hamill is listed as back, which given... If you read some of the rumors or you think about what that might mean, it certainly makes you think, is that going to be a flashback scenario or a Force Ghost scenario or both? I don't know what you think about that. To me, it seems like there's going to be some flashback that's involved in this episode 9.
It's weird to think about flashbacks because they've rarely been used in any of the Star Wars, but I think they're going to have to. And the fact that they're trying to tie all of this together, this is the end of the Skywalker saga, I think we're going to see some flashbacks, even if it's through like Rey's Force visions or whatever. But yeah, I think we're going to see more of that. Although I don't know. I'm reluctant to think that that's the only way we're going to see Luke. I kind of think Luke's still alive.
You do? I've wondered.
I think that there was something with the Force or something, because isn't there something about the light and the dark? Isn't there like a gray Jedi or there's something? Like,
I never totally understood that part of the story, but it also, I mean, what Rian Johnson, for better or worse, did in episode 8 is he showed us things that we hadn't seen before with the Force. So how are we to know that necessarily Luke is gone just because he disappeared? We didn't even know somebody could do that whole business where you essentially put your image out somewhere else while you're sitting back home. Yeah, Force projection. So who knows what that means? And then you've got Carrie Fisher coming back as well. Obviously they're not going to do the CGI route, which is good, because that was one little nitpick I had with Rogue One, was that I was like, when he walked in that room and you saw her back, that was enough for me. I didn't need to see her turn around and talk. It wasn't the end of the world. It didn't ruin anything. And it was kind of creepy because it looked pretty damn real. But not as creepy as Tarkin, though. That blew me away in Rogue One. The fact that Grand Moff Tarkin was like, whoa, he's dead.
I loved it. That was fantastic. Job. Although I do think, like, if they do anything, I think Marvel's got it on lock for de-aging people.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, she's not alive, so it'll be a little difficult for that. But even Luke, any of the flashbacks they can do. I mean, they can make him look 30 years younger, no problem. Mm-hmm. So, and I think I was reading. There was something I read about a year or two ago that Lucasfilm, since the first movie, any actor who's ever done the roles, well, they do this a lot for CGI anyways, is there's face plasters of all of them. So it's really easy to actually mimic the look of whatever age because they've got them from so many different films.
And do they have to get their permission to use their likeness?
I don't think so, because I think Lucasfilm just owns them, because look at all the novels and the video games. I mean, their faces are all over everything. I think your DNA is owned the second you sign on a Star Wars movie.
I think you pause for about a half a second when they say that and you go, fuck it. Yeah, I'm in. Take it.
Like anywhere else, you're like, this sounds like a death, but it's Star Wars. All right, take me.
I'll do it. It's fine.
I mean, where else are you going to live on forever?
Right. Exactly. And then, well, it'll be interesting to see how they do that, because obviously it was footage they used or they shot during episode 8. So it'd be interesting to see how they go with Leia. I mean, obviously in episode 8, I think a lot of people going in thought she was going to die in the movie because of the fact that she had died in real life. And then when she survived to the end, they
Right.
thought, so what are they going to do to kind of finish off her arc at the end, in episode 9? But with those two characters kind of in limbo and obviously they're going to be in the film in some way, it creates an interesting, I don't know, mystique about what they're going to do in 9. You bring up a good point too about 9 that I didn't really think about necessarily, which is what a role for Abrams to play, to say, I have to wrap this whole thing up. This is the end.
Yeah.
So this is not me just continuing the series and saying this is the latest chapter. I got to put a bow on this sucker.
Yeah, he does.
So that's
and he's
tough.
got was it Chris Terrio, the screenwriter of Argo, along with Ben Affleck, Chris Terrio was, I think, on the last film, or is it this one?
I mess
recall.
that stuff up all the time.
He's got a very accomplished screenwriter along with him helping. Although I was really hoping that Kasdan would come back and help him, but
yeah.
I mean, he did great. We all know he did a great job on the previous Star Wars movie. I mean, Episode 7, I loved, and the Han Solo movie, I think, was fantastic. I think they wrote a great movie, and I think Howard came in and did a great job with it.
Yeah.
I think marketing is where that movie failed, but I haven't seen anyone that has disliked that movie.
Yeah, I want to come back to 9 in a minute, but just real quickly there, because Neil and I spoke about this last week, about his opinions on the Solo movie, which, by the way, he has not seen, despite the fact that he has the world's greatest theater, at his fingertips, but he's yet to see the damn movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen a bit when I visited.
I would threaten divorce if I was married on Elise, and she's like, "Oh, we're not going to go see Solo." I'm like, "Well, guess who's going to be Solo?"
I don't think it's her end. I think it's him being like, "I can't do it."
Oh, okay.
Like I'm sure she's like, "Yeah, let's watch it."
Uh-huh.
And when I visited her out there at the ranch, which was just amazing, and got the opportunity to go in that theater, it is.
How's bragging camp?
It's sorry. It's mind blowing though.
I'm sure it is.
It is incredible, that theater. It is really, really awesome. And what they show you is really cool. It was just an amazing experience. So to be able to go see a movie there, and especially one of their movies, in that atmosphere would just be so wonderful. So he hasn't seen it yet, but he had some misgivings, which you heard the last episode. He was talking about, I mean, and this could be what some of the, I don't know, backlash is, I guess, if you want to call it that, towards Solo, is that some people think of, many things like that, Harrison Ford is Solo. People have a tough time, stepping out of that to say that somebody else could play him. He's so iconic, etc. The other thing that Neil was pointing out was that we just saw, Solo die. We just saw Harrison Ford as the character die. I mean, granted, it's a few years ago now, but still it was recent. And so his whole argument was about the timing. Like, oh, maybe it would have been cool to tell the Solo story later, but it's so soon after we just saw his end. Now we're going back and showing his beginning. So that was seen to be kind of his beef. He felt like they should have gone in with other spinoffs before Solo. But like I said, he hasn't seen the movie. He even fully said it's probably good, but he was just worried about the timing of that release. I don't know. Do you think that there's any issue with that caused people to stay away?
I think the only thing that hurt it in timing was, I think the negativity that came out of The Last Jedi.
I agree.
I think, and that's even difficult to say, because I'd really like to sit in a couple of these meetings that Disney's had trying to figure if they're really truly trying to let's figure out what we're doing with Star Wars, because the movie made almost $1 billion. So The Last Jedi didn't fail financially.
Right.
And you know what? It's not a bad. It's I will say as much as a lot of people, Last Jedi was not the Star Wars movie I wanted. It wasn't the Luke Skywalker that I wanted, but I still think it was a fantastic film and an interesting look at the character that nobody expected. And after 30 years of when you didn't have Star Wars, you had to go to the novels or some of the video games or the comic books. It's always been that Luke Skywalker that we knew so well. And even Hamill has come out and said he had a very hard time with it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it was definitely, I mean, Johnson's got a set of balls on him like nobody else, because who else is like, well, this is really what Luke has turned into. So I think people had a hard time with that, but I hope that it goes to, in the future, that people go back and look at it and be like, oh, this is an interesting take. But I think it really is going to, I think people will have a better outlook on that film if JJ nails this one.
I think you're right. I think that could help.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, a lot of people were trying to make the argument, well, people didn't like Empire when it came out, but I don't.
Yep. Yeah.
But the difference between 4 and 5 and 7 and 8 is radically different for me. Like 4 to 5 had way more continuity than 7 to 8 did. 8 looked like it was just trying to kind of shit on a lot of stuff that was sort of built up in 7. And
it was like, fuck continuity.
Right. And so it felt disjointed because of that. It doesn't mean that the movie, like if it was on its own, that movie would be better. But the fact that it's not, and it's coming from somewhere else where, it's just because it disregards certain things. There's obviously certain points to that movie that I struggle with more than others, and like Leia floating and stuff like that. Like that, those types of things bother me. There are other parts that are awesome. What's that?
Or Space Angel Leia?
Space Angel Leia, yes. Yeah. I struggled with that. There was some great stuff. I actually thought all the Rey Kylo stuff was really good.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think, I think to me, it was because that movie came out after her death. So seeing that just was a little too awkward.
Yeah.
Because of what had happened. And that's what I think took me out of it. Had she survived and, Carrie Fisher's alive and well with her fucking dog and she's getting ready for episode 9, right. Like what the future had held for her before her death, I don't think that would have been as awkward. But it was just too true to life, and it was like I think like as a filmmaker I'd have been like, I think we're gonna pull this out.
Well,
like,
yeah, I think when it happened, everybody probably thought, boy, that's pretty early in the movie for her to die, but she's dead, and then it was like, oh, okay, that's just bizarre. Like it just felt so strange to try to bring her back that way, and I don't know, it's almost like Rian Johnson went through the whole movie and went. Or through the whole script and went, well, shit, now that that's happened, now that she's actually died, and we're going to allegedly kill Luke in the end, I can't kill them both. I can't be the guy who killed both of them.
That was all filmed and done. Like everything, like it was part of the movie long before her death. So,
right. I just thought they were still editing
it was an interesting look for, it was for as a fan or as a watcher to actually see her use the Force powers.
Yes.
Which she's never really exuded to on film. So you're like, oh, okay. But then with her dying in real life and then you seeing this, you're like, awkward.
Yeah, right. It was very strange. But there were really great moments. Overall, it just didn't... The film just wasn't complete to me. There was something I walked out of it and it almost gave me a stomachache because I was like, I don't think I like that all that much. And it bothers me. I wish I really wanted to like it more than I did.
What's strange, and even like JJ's first tweet when he announced, said, hey, first day of shooting, he joined Twitter, and he even gave Rian Johnson a shout out right there on Twitter, and he's never said anything but good things. Like he even said at one time he wishes he was directing the script that Rian Johnson wrote, which is like, how? Like he tosses the lightsaber over his shoulder. He kills fucking Phasma. No mention of the Knights of Ren. Right. He kills Luke. Barely uses fucking Maz. What's the other big one? Like everything.
Well, he brought in Yoda. That was good.
Yes, but everything he tried to introduce in Episode 7 to carry on through this the new episodes, the new saga, just like Rian Johnson was like, fuck it, toss it. Like J.J. Abrams is coming back to like, I've got to use Lando, and well, good thing you never fucking did anything with the Knights of Ren, so we're gonna pull those back in, and that's about like all he's got.
Well, right, it makes you wonder when he wrote Episode 7, because I think he was he a producer on 8 or somehow involved in 8, or no, not at all? Abrams.
I don't know if Abrams was on as a producer. Okay. I don't recall.
Okay, but yeah, I'm sure it made me question this too. Is the fact that Rian Johnson is going to do a trilogy at some point? I don't know if they have the timeline for that yet, and I think that's going to be great because he gets to start to finish. His whole concept is a different story. Because he's a
fantastic character writer and director.
It'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder: should Abrams, and in retrospect, it's easy to say this, should this entire trilogy been Abrams?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it would have been more, like we said, there would have been more continuity. There would have been a more understandable, arc all the way from 7 to 9. Because now it just feels like you said, that Abrams is trying to do a little catch up to try to get 9 back on track.
Like, okay, Kathleen Kennedy, like her big thing was, let's bring in directors, let's bring in, people who are very competent to make these films. Mm-hmm. I think she was smart with the standalones. I don't think that the trilogy should have been... If anything, it should have been like they needed a Kevin Feige. They needed someone there to streamline everything to make sure it worked. Yep. And I think the screenwriter probably should have been the same all the way through. Right. Now, a director could have gave it a different look or done something with it, but I really think that there should have been someone being like, okay, like here is the next 3 episodes. Here are the points, all that. Even if a different screenwriter came in and wrote it, mm-hmm. but at least they had, the beginning, middle, and end laid out. And it really seemed like every one of them are coming in and piecing it out. And now Abrams has got to like, I mean, to come in and be like, I've got to make this all fucking work.
Yeah, right. Because originally he thought he was 7 and done.
Yes.
Then I don't remember the timing of when 9 went to him. It was after. Was it after 8 came out that 9 went to him?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that all was it? Because that would mean Abrams only had like 5 months to write the script. Although the last one he jumped in and him and Kasdan wrote it, and they I think within 6 months because they dumped the script that existed.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I mean it just makes so much more sense. I'm not thinking of examples right now, but to try to do 3 different. It's not just 3 different directors. It's 3 different, like you said, screenwriters for a trilogy and have it be connected is really difficult. And so to me, yes, grab directors from everywhere and throw them at these spin-offs and these one-offs or even full trilogies, but make them their own.
Sure.
It just makes it so, like you said, with Leia, awkward because 7, 8, 9 is going to be like this 7, okay, down to 8 and then back up to 9. I'm sure that Abrams is going to do a more fan service than Rian Johnson did, and I'm not asking for total fan service here, but at the same time, it just felt there were a lot of weird scenes in 8. There were a lot of weird ones.
There's even proof, like because like Lucas wrote and directed A New Hope, and then they had Lawrence Kasdan came in and wrote Empire, and who directed it? Who directed? Lucas didn't. It was Kirshner. Kirshner directed the Empire, I think. And then the third was a different screenwriter and a different filmmaker. But George Lucas was always there.
Right.
So like he was there to say, this works, this doesn't. Here's your plot, all this. And I think that helped tell the story, where this time they didn't have George Lucas.
What do you think about him having... What's that? Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think about them having George Lucas on this one?
I think it's a smart thing.
I
think whether Disney was on that or not, I think Abrams strikes me as the kind of guy who has the respect to be like, here's what I'm thinking, here's where we're going, like, what is at least like sit down and have the conversation. Because I mean, this guy, for whatever your bitch or gripes or whatever, none of this would exist without that man.
Oh, 100%.
And even the bad ones, like I still love,
I have a tougher time with that, but I think it's a very smart play to say, this is the world you created. This is the saga you created. So I want your input on how we're going to wrap this up. It doesn't mean he's going to have any sort of creative control, but he will have input. And I think that's a good thing. Because it's like we talked about it before, it's to bring all that back, and wrap it all up. It's probably smart to have the originator on board. So makes sense to me. I was going to mention also with 9, they didn't mention Benicio Del Toro, which I thought was interesting. Although I would imagine he still might pop up. I don't know. Maybe they just didn't mention him officially. But I was excited when he was announced for 8, and then then his character was kind of, I don't know. I wasn't totally on board with him.
It was like all he got to watch in his trailer was Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it was. Abdi, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck is this character?
I don't know. It felt like a wasted opportunity for sure.
It did. I mean, like, I liked the idea of the character and sort of the darkness and what he could potentially bring to that series. Yeah. But just when he spoke, I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, that was a bit weird. You mentioned Lando. So he's back, which I think is pretty cool. I'm actually surprised, they didn't have him back sooner. It's a bummer that we didn't have him in 7 just to have some sort of Han Lando scene or Han Lando scene.
Yeah,
that would have been fun to do, but it'll be interesting to see how they use him, and I'm kind of excited he's back. Obviously, Laura Dern's not back. For the newcomers, do you know Naomi Ackie? I'm not familiar with her. Okay.
I don't. Like, I read that she did, she was in one of the Shakespeare movie Hamlet or something a couple years ago. And then there was a miniseries, I think it was called The Five, that she was in. So she was in an episode of Doctor Who, and so was the actor we're going to talk about soon, Grant.
Yeah.
Richard E. Grant.
Richard E. Grant, who, by the way, I joked on Twitter, he looks like he was born in an Empire uniform. Just the guy himself. You're like, well, he's clearly going to be on the bad side.
Right, yeah. I would be shocked if he was. Although, like Max von Sydow, when 7 opened up, I assumed he would be Empire, and he was, which was a waste of an actor for a character that meant nothing. Like, I keep thinking that there's a story there, or there's something. Like, to me, just because of the actor they used, I kept thinking, like, well, what was the point of this?
Right. That was kind of bizarre. They just wanted to start out with a bang in that opening scene. I think so.
Right.
Yeah. But then, and you have I think you were telling me that you had a theory about who Richard Grant might be.
I think he's Admiral Thrawn.
Do you?
Yeah. I don't see him being anything else.
Yeah, I could see that. So, that character is pretty awesome. If for anybody who doesn't know that character, I didn't read the book, so I don't know any of the book stuff at all. My knowledge is all movies plus some Clone Wars and all of Star Wars Rebels, because I was a huge Star Wars Rebels fan.
Which is when they brought him into canon, was in Rebels.
Yes, and he was great. The character was fantastic. He's just like real cold-blooded, just always in control of everything. He's got those crazy red eyes and the blue skin. So it's a really interesting character, and one that I think would be cool to include. It's interesting on the timeline front to include him at this point, given that he was Admiral Thrawn before A New Hope, and now we're way later.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not. Well, Grand Admiral Thrawn is what he is in. If you read the Heir to the Empire books, that's where he's introduced by Timothy Zahn, who wrote those. And those before the new trilogy came out, those were always considered like by Lucas to be the finalized stories of Luke and Leia and Han.
Oh, okay.
Years ago, and Thrawn was like the villain. And then when Disney bought everything, they turned it into Legends, and those stories became part of the Legends. But over the last couple of years, Disney kind of picks and chooses what they want from all of those. So they brought him into Rebels. Timothy Zahn came back and wrote Thrawn. Is it 1 or 2 books now? I think there's going to be 3. Okay. And then Vader's on the cover with Thrawn. Oh. So they're kind of reintroducing him into the past saga. So he's part of the storyline now, and I think that Disney, who they got? They killed, as of right now, there is no Emperor. Right. There's only Kylo Ren, who I guess there's rumor that he's going to be Supreme Chancellor Ren or Supreme whatever.
Right. There's rumors of that. Hux is still around, but he's, of course, kind of worthless. Obviously, Snoke is gone, although I want to mention that in a second on one of the rumors fronts. But with the Thrawn thing, and maybe this kind of gives more credence to the whole flashback concept. Maybe he's going to be more in flashback. Maybe that's where a lot of his role is going to be. You don't know. But I'm interested to see if they use him. And then you got Kerry Russell. I do
want to state for anyone who's listening, we don't know what the hell we're talking about.
This is all...
we know, but this is all, and this is the fun part of being a geek though, because maybe 2% of this will actually happen on screen, but we got 15 months to bullshit about this. So I live in this world.
Well, I enjoy your theories, because when we were talking a little bit about this over DM like a month or so ago, and you were throwing these things out almost like they were fully formed concepts
I wrote the movie, basically.
I was like, Jesus, man, this guy's got the whole thing. It's going to be a disappointment when it comes out and he nails it.
Yeah, right.
You're going to be in the theater going, yep. But Kerry Russell, who I'm a huge fan of, especially from her work on The Americans, is became an official cast member. And you had a theory on that, which a lot of people I've heard kind of say the similar things, that she could potentially be Luke's wife.
Yes.
And what's her name?
Yeah. Well, if they go the route of the books, which again was Timothy Zahn, was Mara Jade.
Okay. Which then gets into the whole thing of, okay, now is Rey somehow involved or related? You know what I mean? That's the next step that people take.
Doesn't she have to be?
You would think.
How do you end this with Rey just being first of all, I think Kylo was giving her a line of shit.
Oh yeah, I think he's full of crap there.
Yeah. Though I don't think he realizes. First of all, I got to watch it again, because it's really weird. Because at one point Snoke says it was him that was putting the making the two so close. Mm-hmm. But almost the last shot of the movie, they do it again.
Right.
And Snoke is dead.
Yes.
So who's doing this?
Right.
There's a reason that they. So it's. I think the closeness is a lot more than just. Her parents being some drunk dudes. Sold her to. Unkar Blot, is that his name?
I think that's his name. Yeah, Simon Pegg.
Yeah. There you go.
They sold her to Simon Pegg. Yeah. Well, of course, Snoke's dead, but he was sliced in half, and we know how sometimes you can get sliced in half and still come back later.
Very true. Although they did show a shot where they wiped him off the floor and his tongue was hanging out.
So he was lifeless for sure.
Unless there's a resurrection thing that he can do.
Right.
But that what a great character to just piss on.
Yeah, I think some people didn't like him from the start, so they were like, fine, whatever. But it was an odd way to have him go out. It was cool in the moment, because it was like, oh, nice,
yes.
That he just did that. But yeah, it seemed fairly early or premature, perhaps, to kill him off when he's supposed to be the main bad guy. Because now what? Kylo's supposed to be the main bad guy. We know he's conflicted, so that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, well, I don't. It does sort of say a lot for him when Snoke can't even tell him what he's feeling anymore, like how strong he's become.
Well, it shows how strong both of them are so strong.
Yes, and that fight, like, kudos to fucking Ryan Johnson may have pissed a lot of people off, but that 1 5-minute shot, like, you can just watch and just love.
That was the one. There were two like kind of goosebumpy moments in that movie. That was one, and the other was when Luke and Leia, got
yes.
Those two, although that was more like, I'm fine.
That's a different movie. You said they got together.
Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Well, shit, they've kissed a couple times.
Yeah, that's fan fiction.
Speaking of Snoke, you see the rumor that they think that Ed Harris is going to play a young Snoke?
I've heard that, yeah.
Did you
I
look
don't know
at
where
the
that
picture
came from.
of Snoke
It does.
and
it
go,
does look
fuck,
like
it looks like him.
Yeah.
I
don't know where that rumor came from, but I haven't heard anything since. But yeah, it was the headlines one day was J.J. Abrams is trying to recruit Ed Harris to play a young Snoke.
Right. So,
I'm like, well, like the look looks like it, but are you going to have what's his face? The actor's name escapes me. Come back and do the voice?
Oh,
like, what
a
are they
circus?
gonna do? Yeah, circus.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, that makes you wonder there, but I just thought that was a hilarious rumor. I imagine that's one that we won't see actually happen, but it was pretty funny because, like I said, you just see that picture and you're like, Jesus, I can see him in there. I can see Ed Harris.
Oh.
What?
What's his name? His name escapes me. Palpatine's master.
Oh, the Plagueis?
And yes, Plagueis. And he was the one that learned how to resurrect himself.
Yeah.
So that maybe Luke also knows how to do that.
That's possible. Yeah, there's a lot of open ends here.
Yeah.
He can go in a lot of different directions, so it'll be real interesting to see what he does.
That movie is going to make so much fucking money.
Yeah.
If Luke Skywalker shows up in the trailer as living.
Yeah.
Like, everyone is going to be like, fuck you, they're in. Like, how does that movie, holy shit. I've got goosebumps.
Yeah, frankly, they should be able to pull that. This movie should make a killing regardless, just because it's the end. I mean, you still have some people. I got a lot of people who I talked to who have been fans for years who are like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Like,
I don't understand that.
They're just
like,
checking
I just
out.
Don't. Yeah, it's so weird because, like, you didn't write any of this. Like, you were a fucking kid who watched a movie and enjoyed it. Like, fucking go take a nap, you goddamn baby.
Well, I mean, because trust me, when the prequels happened, I was very turned off, and to the point where, like, I'm trying to think if I saw them all in the theater or not, but I was very soured at that point, and I was kind of in the thought of, not that they ruined the first three, but like, that's what they did. But then when they came back around with 7, I was like, I am so back in, because there's no more thoughts of like, oh my God, you can't mess with that original trilogy because they already did. So now it's like, fucking whatever, make 100 of them. Yeah. You know, I don't care, because if you make a bad one, we'll just throw it away. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Back to Neil and Solo.
Hey, Neil.
So you liked Solo. You were a huge fan of the movie.
Right? I loved
You thought
it.
Aaron Reich did really well.
Yes.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought he did. He captured the essence of Solo, and especially like you're getting to see a version of the guy who is not yet Harrison Ford's version.
Mm-hmm,
you know,
exactly.
Like he's filled with positivity and excitement, and instead of this is a very bad. What's he say? This is.
He's got a good feeling about this instead of I got a bad feeling about this.
Yes, exactly. So like there's these little elements that you start seeing where like, oh, it's not there yet. And I thought they did a really good job of introducing them to us to the character and watching this play out. And they really, like, by the end, like you're into the Rebel Alliance a little bit, and like there's a story there that is going to continue. Like, I really hope Disney realizes that they screwed themselves by shooting the movie twice. They were never going to make their money back, and it did okay. I hope that they're like, you know what? Ron Howard proved that he can shoot a movie quick, fast. I hope they honor him and give him the sequel, maybe a smaller budget, but if anybody can shoot it on a smaller budget and still make it look big, it's him. And I hope they try to do it again. Now, if Disney's smart, they'll wait a month or two after the digital and DVD release and see, if people jump on it. But I don't see why this movie is not going to sell once it hits home video. And I hope they give it another chance, because I loved everything they put out. And by the end, there was an open, you're like, oh shit, there's so many things that they have to answer to yet. And I'm on board, man. I was skeptical because it wasn't Harrison Ford.
For sure. And that was my biggest trepidation going in, was I was like, I like this idea, except I'm real worried that he's going to just suck. And
Right.
it's such a hard role to step into. And that's why I think before the movie came out, I said, this is all on his shoulders, because if he's no good, the movie's it's going to fail. Storyline being good or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then when Howard came in, I was actually okay with that just because I typically like Howard movies, but I was like, man, if this guy pulls it off, what a freaking masterstroke. And I think he did.
Yeah. Right.
And so I thought the beginning of that movie was the only part I struggled with a little bit. I thought the beginning was, I don't know, there's something that just didn't work quite for me yet. And maybe it's because he was still kind of getting his bearings as the character anyway. And he was young, he's the young version of that character, but he becomes that guy over the course of the whole movie. By the end of the movie, I am totally 100% in on him being Han Solo. Whereas at the beginning, I'm like,
Once Chewie shows up,
yeah.
and you get to see the banter,
the shower scene,
and the. But you know what I'm saying? There's so many subtle little nuances that he does as Han Solo, and there's even the one point he does the Harrison Ford point.
Yeah.
He starts waving the hand, and every time he's got to get snarky with Chewie, I'm like, fucking nailed it.
Well, good point about Chewie.
I'm on board.
That's a good point about Chewie. We've never seen him without him. So for him to be on his own without him before is a little weird. But then it's a great way to show how he got a little hardened over the years and cynical, is because it's showing him getting double crossed by people who he's longing. I mean, he's obviously got some sort of detachment disorder, whatever it is, or abandonment issues because he's on his own. So he's trying to latch on with Woody and crew, and then he gets double crossed. And he's like, well, mother, Yeah. And so then he realizes basically in the end of that movie, you realize Chewie's his man, and he can't really trust anybody else
for life.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I love the scene because I made the joke once before that because of the fact that Wookiees live so long, isn't really Han his pet?
It should be.
And then there's the scene where they're on the spice mines and they're saving all the Wookiees, and the fucking Wookiee pets Han.
Yeah, right.
And I'm laughing. I was like, oh, it's right there. He's like, yeah, okay. And they just move on with it. But I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, and I thought the Kira storyline was interesting and has so much more to go.
Exactly.
There's so much room to even if they just make a second. If they don't have to make it a trilogy necessarily, but I think a second one's warranted, and I really hope there's a way that it gets made and that it comes around. And I agree with you. I think giving Howard the chance to make that follow up would be nice from the start.
And to put it in the pantheon of the Star Wars movies, it is leagues above better than the prequels.
Oh yeah.
It looks as gorgeous, and I think is just as good as 7, and I would put it above Rogue One, just because there's more of the saga and the Easter eggs and the little nuances to things that we've grown to love in the Star Wars movies. So for me, it sits higher than that. So to me, I think this is one of the better Star Wars movies.
I agree. I think Rogue One's right there with it, but they're just different movies, so different.
Yeah.
I like the fact that we get introduced to all these different characters, but with that Star Wars feel in Rogue One, which is something I'm really looking forward to seeing in more spin-offs, is you can give me that Star Wars feel, throw some characters in that I don't necessarily know, and I'm still going to be on board. You don't have to have a ton of cameos, There's going to be referential stuff, and that's fine. But I absolutely loved Rogue One. And I really like Solo. So I'm excited to see that. I mean, that's 2 spin-offs, and to me, both great movies.
Yes, I agree.
So let's make
Lando,
more.
Let's talk about him as Lando. That was I don't know if anyone's ever come in and maybe done a better job at being that character, a character that, other movies where they've come in and they've rehired an actor or whatever, but his name escapes me. What's
Donald Glover?
Donald Glover. Yeah, it was fucking amazing.
Well, you heard what Billy D's advice was to him, right?
No.
Just be charming.
Oh, well,
that's all he told him.
Okay.
Done.
And it's true.
But it shows him.
Be charming with everything.
Well, right. It shows him as such a, because he's a smoothie, but he's also very kind of standing on shaky ground at all times. Mm-hmm. He's presenting a bravado that is not backed up all the way. He's still a little bit doesn't quite have a hold of everything.
Yes.
And that plays exactly into who you meet in Empire.
Yes.
The guy was I got it all under control here, and then he doesn't.
and kudos, I think, of the strong point of the movie is there were so many people are we don't need to see Han and Chewie meet, or who cares about when Han and Lando met or whatever, because it could have been done wrong. There were so many ways it could have failed, but I think every time they introduced you to the origin of whatever, it was perfect
well,
to me.
People get into that whole. It was a story that didn't need to be told.
Right.
What do you like? It's a movie that didn't need to be made, and that always kind of, I don't know, gets my dander up a little. Like, what are you talking about? No movies need to be made.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, there was enough of a time frame there that we didn't know where he came from. I mean, we have an idea of who he is, and we've heard rumors and tales of different things.
Right.
But there was story there to be told, so I don't think it was a big deal. I think it worked completely.
I agree. I think Disney did the right thing, and I hope that they don't look at that as a failure.
What's next when it comes to the spinoffs? Because we know we've got a trilogy from Rian Johnson. We know we've got a trilogy from the Game of Thrones guys.
Yes.
But then there have been rumors of other spinoffs coming. There was the Boba Fett rumor
with the Logan director.
Yeah,
yes.
There's a Kenobi.
Rumor has it that the director of the Kenobi film left. I'm not sure if that's true because Disney's never come out and announced whether that was happening. But
right.
I think Boba Fett told right just like Han, if they've got a good story. Like, I don't think they need to be doing these. And I think Lucasfilm is smart enough to, like, we're not doing these for cash grabs. Like, they really care about what they're doing with these films. And that says, with everyone calling for Kathleen Kennedy's head, I think that she had the right idea when she was getting filmmakers, like, to come in and make their own Star Wars movie. But some of these, like the younger ones, I don't think have the prestige, or not even necessarily that. They just don't have the expertise to come in there and handle all this, because that's a lot of pressure to put on you.
Yeah.
Now you get Ron Howard, who that pressure's not gonna. I mean, it's there, but he's dealt with it for so long. Like he's like, I'm gonna come in and make my movie, and he did. And I think they learned a lesson there. And I don't think Kennedy's been around long enough too, where I think she just had to figure out what the rules are going to be for this, the filmmaking version. So,
but do you think there's enough of a story there for Fett for a whole movie, or do you see him more as a role in another movie?
Both. I think there's enough mystery behind the character where they could really build a really cool story that we don't know anything about. I see that happening. Although I think that maybe, like, to me, I would update the character a little bit. I think not necessarily nanotechnology and Iron Man shit, but at least I think the helmet should have, like what Iron Man sees. I think there should be some really cool elements to an update to the costume. But I mean, everyone loves the character, and there's not really much to him. There's even a story that there's different versions of Boba Fett. Like the name, the character, the bounty hunter is known, but it's always someone else underneath the armor. So there could be a really interesting story of that. Like the guy in the armor died in the Scarlet Pit, but Boba Fett itself is a symbol. Right. So you could really carry on with that. I don't know if that's what Disney's planning on doing, but I like the idea. As long I'm always on story. I'm always I love the character, but as long as they've got a good story, I don't see why not to move forward with it. But I really want to see Kenobi.
I do too, because I mean, I think you could make the argument, or some people would make the argument. We see a lot of him in the prequels. We see him obviously in A New Hope, and then some Force Ghost stuff later. So what's to tell in the middle? There's a lot, and I think there's a huge chunk of time that's not accounted for.
30 years.
Yeah, there's a huge chunk of time not accounted for, and with the, I mean, I guess I could say spoiler alert if you haven't seen Solo, but with them throwing in Maul. Mm-hmm. There's a storyline between those two that you could really do a lot with.
Yes,
because Maul is obsessed with him.
Yes, and even if they keep Solo as just its standalone, which they're signed for a trilogy. It's supposed to be a trilogy, but even if some of the stories like the Red faction, what was the name of the group that Maul ended up being the head of?
It's
the
Red.
Scarlet, the Red.
No, you're right. It's Scarlet.
Yeah,
I forget the name. You're right.
But even if they keep some of those plot threads, they can continue those through other single standalone movies. Mm-hmm. Maybe those could work that way. Like maybe Han will show up in the Boba Fett movie, and maybe and then maybe some of that will carry on. Well, I guess it can't carry on. Well, yeah, it can't carry on to Kenobi. Well, it could carry on into Kenobi because that's after. No,
right, it could.
It's before. Yeah, before A New Hope.
Correct.
So it all could sort of the story could just be interlinked, sort of like the Marvel movies, like the big story of the Infinity Gems and all that kind of carry on through all the films, but they're all their own standalone stories. I mean, they could go that way.
Well, they better do it soon if they're going to want to, do it and get Ewan McGregor involved, because I think this is a great age for him to be at to do these, to do a film. So
I agree.
I hope they do something with it. I mean, I do want to see other, and I think that was one of Neil's points. Show me other characters, and I agree with that too. I think there is.
Well, that's what they're
gonna
doing. I think that Ryan Johnson and the two writers from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, those are going to be totally different stories.
Yeah, they're creating all new sagas for the Star Wars universe, but those will be all new stories. So
yeah, that's not an issue for you, right? As far as Star Wars goes, because like for instance, my buddy Chris, who does a podcast, 2 on 3 podcast, he has always said Star Wars is a Skywalker story. So he, I think, struggles with getting out of the realm of the Skywalker,
right.
Space to tell other Star Wars stories. To me, that's not true at all. To me, yes, the main storyline has been the Skywalker story, but there's so many more stories to be told. It's a huge universe.
Exactly, and it's a fascinating world that George Lucas built. So why not play in it? I mean, that's a big sandbox to and they've built plenty of really great characters outside of they've been in the Skywalker universe. But I mean, I think as long as you develop a good character and sort of play in that world, and who doesn't like that, hear that music and just like, oh, I'm in.
Yeah.
So
of course. Although even though when the Rogue One music started up, I was like, wait a minute,
a little different. Yeah,
it's a little different. Did you hear how they did that though?
What's that?
I'm going to get this wrong, but the guy who composed that music flipped the theme on its head.
I think so. I think
it's like an upside down version of the actual thing. I don't know. Go look it up for anybody who's listening. And it's a really interesting way that he went about creating that particular music, and he did it extremely fast. He had a very, very short time frame, like he had like 2 months to do it.
Oh wow!
Or something stupid like that. They were like, "No, you need to do this because we got rid of the other guy." Are we sensing a theme here?
Yes.
You're out. Somebody come in and save it.
But I mean they fired so many people throughout these movies. So
seems like Kathleen Kennedy has a vision.
Yes. much like I mean, when the Marvel movies first started out, I think people are forgetting how like ruthless Kevin Feige was. Like, he was very like, this is already, and there's a lot of directors who don't want to make a Marvel movie because you really have to paint by numbers, sort of. Yeah.
That makes sense. As far as Neil's comments go, I was gonna mention you got to take it with a grain of salt, because I don't know if you heard what he said at the end or toward the end. He goes, I don't know, maybe you could make a spinoff about the droids. Are you kidding me? We're not making a droid movie here, man.
Tell them that cartoon exists and no one wants to watch it.
Right, exactly. Speaking of robots.
Yes.
I found this article, or I think somebody may have shared it with me. I apologize because I'm not remembering who, but it was from Reuters, and I shared this link with you. And this is an article called Smart Bots, China's Sex Doll Makers Jump on AI Drive. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Yes, I'm going to talk about sex bots again.
Of course you are.
But I have not had many opportunities to talk to Jay about sex bots, so I wanted to run through that. It's a very short article, so I wanted to run through a little bit of it, and then I wanted you to save the slideshow till the end, because I want you to open it up while I'm talking to you, because there are some shocking pictures in there.
Okay. Okay.
So amid Beijing's push to turn the country into an artificial intelligence powerhouse and embed the technology in all facets of life, some Chinese entrepreneurs are taking the expertise to a new frontier: sex dolls. Which to me, I say, for me, I say, duh.
Do you think there's a lot of like hands-on with these developers? Like, you got to sort of try it out, right? Like,
I would assume.
How do you know it's working? Or so like a lot of these have to be built around their own likes and fetishes.
That's a good point, and one I hadn't thought of before. Yeah, I mean they got to drink their own Kool-Aid, I think.
Yeah.
Hold on, honey, I'm gonna be home late. I'm doing research as he's getting sucked off by a robot.
It's just for work.
Oh man. WM Doll launched what it calls AI-powered dolls at the end of 2016 that offer features ranging from simple conversation to moving eyes, arms, and torsos, which I can only assume have super strength so they can crush your balls and pee-pees to bits.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought there were a lot of these companies in Japan are already making sex bots that can do all of this.
It's so across the board that every time I come onto one of these articles, holy shit!
Yeah,
every time I find one of these articles,
page 69.
Whoa, sticky. Every time I find one, it seems like they're in different phases of where, of the developmental cycle, as far as how far along they've come. How, can they really hold a conversation? Can they do all these different things? Because it just started out as just basically dummies that you put your dingling in. So I don't know. This is a current article. So maybe these guys are just behind the times. I don't know. Customers can personalize their dolls by choosing various appearance options, including height, hairstyle, and eye color, and so much more. I'm sure you've heard us talk about the customization options before, because you can add like vampire teeth and elf ears and crazy shit like that. And that's why, I have one that I've made, which is just a dead ringer for Dave Meyer.
Diamond Dave.
Don't tell him.
Well, what was it your 200th episode then? What's the episode that we called in and asked the question if you could turn each other into a sex bot, who would it be?
That was 200. You and Cole sent in an audio clip. Yes. And it was, and I think we ended up with
Neil was going to be the sex bot.
I think Neil was the sex bot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Go back and listen to that if you like. I can't remember where we landed on that, but it was probably pretty inappropriate. Your other question was hilarious though, because it was like something about killing dogs at the halftime of the Super Bowl or something like that. It was very crazy. Poor Annalise's face was like, oh. Anyway, AI features on the dolls are still very basic. They can answer questions, but cannot hold longer conversations. So it's kind of like being at a dance club.
It's like talking to Alexa.
Or talking to Alexa. The dolls use vocabulary by connecting to a database supported by Chinese tech giant Baidu, I guess is how you say that. The firm admits improving the features has been difficult, partly because experts aren't interested in putting much effort into developing AI technology for adult products. Oh, they will be.
I'm surprised by this because I had wrote down, here's my theory. Here's what's these are gonna take off. I think AI itself is going to be, it's going to be like the rest of the technology world. Once porn gets their dirty little hands on it, that's where it because that's apparently
thrive.
where the money is. Like, think about it. Like when there was the VHS and the beta wars, VHS won because that's what porn went to. When there was the Blu-ray and the HD DVD, Blu-ray won because that's what porn went to. So now no one wants to develop anything for AI, but once people start, once the porn industry gets in there, be like, well, this is what you can do. And it's shocking how many companies are into this, which means there's got to be interest in this from people.
Oh, of course.
Like, do I have too much shame to hump a robot? Like,
is it too much shame or not enough? No, I think you're going to see that more and more, especially when you look at it from a broader, like, societal aspect of the lack of social interaction with people. Real, authentic, in-person social interaction is just going to make people feel more and more disconnected. And so, hey, why don't I go ahead and just order this thing off Amazon? It'll be here in 2 days and I can get laid.
That doesn't sound like a bad idea.
Your pause was great because it looked like you were almost about to start firing up Amazon and going, do they have that already?
Well, the idea of like, I can get laid in 2 days from now. Where do I sign up at?
Now, here's the weird part. I don't get this. It says WM Dolls says it has sold more than 20. That's 20 of the AI dolls, which are priced between $1,500 and $7,500 compared with their annual sale of 20,000 dolls. How have they only sold 20 of these things? Are people that afraid? Like, don't get me wrong. AI scares me to bits, but yeah, most people are not that way. Most people are kind of embracing it, I think. Yes. So why I don't know.
Maybe they've sold 20 and they just started last month. But that's
maybe their product is inferior. Maybe it sucks.
What's the the profit margin here? Because you think that although any startup company loses billions before they make money, apparently. So I guess they're okay with starting, selling 20.
Maybe. But well, they still got their bread and butter, the dolls, the regular lifeless, not talking dolls.
Right. Okay.
They're still making money on that.
I would guess that this is going to be a slow rollout.
So many puns. Nice and slow. So you ready to open up? Have you got the article open?
Yes.
Okay. So listeners, go check the link that's in the show notes and check these out with us because they're pretty crazy. People like to use the expression, you don't want to know or see how the sausage is made. This applies here.
Oh, is this like the creepy where they show the skin go over the robotic face and
that one's not in here, but similar things are happening. Okay, so you can go through the slideshow now. There's a few that I want to point out.
Is it the one that's on the top with the woman with the cross eyes?
It's toward the bottom. There's a little like plus sign on a little like square box that says 21 slides or something like that. You see it down toward the bottom of the article?
Well, wait. Okay. I can just all I have to do is slide them over.
Okay. All right. So if you start clicking through these, but when you get to slide 5, stop because and
do you want
slide
me to
5,
narrate these as I'm going through them real quick?
You can if you'd like, because they're pretty crazy.
Okay, first of all, I'm not quite sure why her head has to be on backwards. I mean, I guess you get to see how pretty she is and look at her rump.
Right.
The
second one's creepier.
Also, it's just one woman in the whole factory. That's kind of weird.
Oh
my good Lord.
Shot.
So the second one is their head on their knees.
Looks like they're in a morgue.
Yeah, it does. And then we've got, is that a doll? It looks like a photo shoot with a girl with pigtails.
Yes, and he's set her up. He's got like all it's a total photo shoot. He's got the lighting all set up and everything. And he's fixing her hair.
It's got to be pigtails,
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay, now there's this weird blurry... Is this robot moving that fast? Because if she moves that fast, you do not want her anywhere near you.
No,
dick.
she's gonna murder you. But look at the size. Look at the size of the breasts on all.
Oh
of them.
yeah, they're massive.
Yeah, they're not. They're they're going big.
I like the one in the gray like doctor, the maintenance outfit with like Dr. Footies on or whatever. What's going on here?
I don't know.
All right.
So the next one was the first one I was going to share, which is hilarious. Is these 3 women who work at this place, and they're all just taking a lunch break, and in the background you just see all these bodies strewn about all over all these metal tables.
It looks like like in TV shows or movies where like a plane crashes and they bring all the bodies to the hangar.
Yep.
That's all it looks like. Just looks
it does. It's so creepy. Now here's where it's going to get weird for you.
Okay.
This is possibly the most disturbing image I've seen in years.
That is freaky.
Why is he stop pulling on her mouth like that, or her? It's a woman.
Is that supposed to be a tongue inside of there?
I don't know, but what's happening is he's pulling her lips apart, and it's just so bizarre.
He's got her like by the nose, and he's just yanking it up, and it's a very disturbing image. And you know what it is? There's no teeth.
No, which I guess is good, right? You don't want
to,
It's so weird. This next one is disturbing just because the girl that's got the basketball, that's the one that drives me the most nuts here.
It just looks like a Barbie funhouse room.
Right.
Like all these Barbies are hanging out. Yeah, you wouldn't know that they were bought. And they all look like the Barbie with the basketball's got like crimped hair. Look at the one in the back left. I mean, she's got like 9 miles of cleavage. And I'm noticing a difference in the thickness of their thighs.
Yes, there are some differences here. Because the one second from the left in the back there is disturbingly young.
Look at the one on the far right sitting on the edge of the couch with like grandma titties. She's like this skinny little woman and she's just got like these sagging boobs.
But the two on the either side of the green, whatever the hell that thing is in the back, they look like they're crazy young. And I know it's a doll, but Jesus, man, that's no good.
No, that's kind of... Even the one with the pigtails looks a bit too young.
Yeah. So this next one's real bizarre. If you go to slide 8, I don't know what's going on here.
Oh,
they're
that's
doing a mold of a face.
That's straight from the shoot of It 2.
It's that, or there's some sort of what's the thing in New Orleans? Mardi Gras. It looks like they're doing some sort of Mardi Gras mask.
Right.
That's crazy.
It is weird that like only her lips and like it just looks like she.
I'm telling you. Do you want to see how the sausage is made?
Yeah.
The next one is funny just because it's a couple wigs.
Oh, okay. I thought they were like robot heads, but yeah, you're right.
No, they're just wigs sitting on some balls. Pretty mild, all things considered.
Yeah.
The next one shows the back of that lifeless head.
It looks like they just like plugged in an old school speak and spell.
It's like the speakerphone they used in Charlie's Angels or something, except for they've got that little port there. Slide 11 is very disturbing as well because it's the kit that I guess you get in the mail when you order them.
So do you have to put your bride together?
I think you do. I don't think it comes assembled. I think you got to put the sucker together. Maybe that brings you closer together because you know all the ins
Is that
and
the
outs.
bonding experience?
Right. It's like the birthing experience.
I mean, to me, it adds a new level of weirdness. But at some point, if you're like, you're hitting the buy it now button, like weird's tossed out the window.
Oh, totally. I just like that. I imagine there's a scenario where like a guy opens up the box and just goes, "This isn't right." Has to send it back. Oh man, I ordered the elf ears. Okay, get ready for slide 12. This is fun.
What the is he checking the hoo-ha?
So I think it's a woman, and she's got the doll's legs up in the air, and it looks like she's looking at her cooch. But look at the quote left hand, which looks like they put accidentally a right hand on the left hand. It's all bent out of position.
It's exactly 90 degrees from bottom knuckles straight out fingers going out. That's pretty weird.
That's great if you want to do blow off your sex doll right there. The next one is just, looks pretty rudimentary. You're having to hold the thing up.
They're just drying the paint on the head in front of a fan.
In front of a fan. Just a fan. Real high technology
stuff. Is it smart that they've got women only working on all of these dolls for like a real authenticity? Or does that say...
because they know the woman form better than the man,
you think so?
They can make sure. Maybe. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
There's not a man in any of these pictures.
I don't see any. Except for, I think there was a man setting up the photo shoot. I think that was the only one.
And this shot looks like it's straight out of Blade Runner 2049.
Exactly.
2048?
2049. It looks like that, or like a death scene from Goodfellas or something. You got these feet hanging from, I can only imagine the doll's on a hook.
Yes,
and is wrapped in plastic.
It looks like, she's fallen out of her birthing goo, like from Blade Runner. Very, very, very weird.
Okay, ready for the eye insert?
Okay, here we go. Oh, see, that's just too much.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. It's. I guess all things considered, with what we're seeing, this isn't the worst one, but it is kind of gross. And frankly, I can't stop looking at that person's fingernails, and they need to do something about them.
This one has teeth.
This one does have teeth.
Do you think the teeth are like porcelain? Do you think they put
no,
real hard
they're
teeth?
Gummy.
See, that's just strange.
Yeah, but they've got to be gummy. There's no way those are porcelain teeth.
That's true.
That would jack the price way up.
Yeah. I think I'd have to go with real here. Like, you
gotta keep those suckers brushed.
You go to kiss her and it's like you're gumming grandma.
Yeah, but you got to brush your teeth every night.
Yeah, that's true.
Get the floss out.
Well, if you're gonna put this much money into this thing, I think that you can brush your damn teeth.
Right. Slide 16 is funny. I like the warning signs. Got to wear a mask. No pictures. No smoking.
Such a weird.
Again, just looks like a MASH unit.
Yeah, it looks like a World War II infantry ward.
Right, like there's a guy in the back screaming because he's getting his leg amputated.
Yeah. It's a very clean floor, though.
It looks very, very.
At least you can say your sex bot is made in a very sterile environment.
Exactly, it's very hospital-like.
Mm-hmm.
17 is just a bunch of faces in a cabinet, which is again
very governor-esque.
It is, but at this point, it's right. At this point, it's like this isn't even shocking. Although that looks like the person in the middle, to the right with the eyes open, is a bit concerned. Help!
You're gonna do what?
No, this is real funky because now we're into stick figures.
Oh, so that's like the frame.
Yeah, the frame of these things is just straight up metal stick figure.
That's weird.
Yeah,
this whole thing is too weird.
Yeah, the next one shows the same thing.
It's almost like the T100.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it's very Terminator-esque.
Yes. Okay, the next one. Yeah, now they've got him up against a wall.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the T10 model right here.
Yeah, it's early days.
Yeah.
This is the first one. This might be the T1.
This is before Elon Musk and Skynet, put money into it.
Right. They found these in the back of like some warehouse. And we're like, oh yeah, they were just grasping at straws here. And then slide 20 is just a bunch of heads, but
burlap sacks.
And sacks over their heads, exactly, like they're going to be executed. And then finally, or they have just been executed. And then finally, slide 21 is funny because while there are some remarkable abs on this guy's body, because this is a male bot, you can kind of see the money zone, and it's looking very Ken doll-esque. Did they put the cock on later?
Yeah, that must the picture just cuts off to where you would at least see something, and it doesn't look like there's anything there.
No, and his pecs are just a little too defined, so that they look like boobs.
They do. He's also got very large nipples.
He does. It looks like Khan in Star Trek 2. Remember how he had those weird pecs? That's what it kind of looks like. Oh my god.
So why every shot is women working on female sex bots, and then the last one is like, oh surprise, we're working on men too.
Yeah, that's just a glimpse into the future.
Right.
Don't worry, we're gonna get you too.
That's the T100 right there. That's Arnie's fucking body.
It kind of is. A little bit smaller, but definitely more cut. So how many are you going to buy?
I don't think I could do it. Like, not even if one was sent to me for free.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been to the point where I'm like, well, squirt the lube out. Like, let's give this a go.
Yeah, it would almost be like somebody bought you one and you're, 10 blue moons in and you're just like, well,
I don't know. Like,
kids are out of the house. Nobody will know, right?
I mean, maybe for the show, I'd be like, so I had this experience last night.
If you're dry on content that week, you're like, fuck it, I got to do it. Need something to talk about.
Yeah. Do you know anyone in your life that would want one of these?
Yeah, probably my brother. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know anybody who would do this. But like I said, I think as time goes by, it's going to be less and less taboo, just like a lot of things are. And you're going to see more and more people doing this. I think you've probably heard us talk about it on our show before where there's like brothels where you can go.
That's weird.
And pay to have sex with these things so you don't actually have to buy one.
You know what I can see happening is you get one of these from a partner. Like, let's say like people are in like long distance online relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say they get to the point where like you put on gloves or whatever and you can control it, right? So you're basically using the robot to touch the person and it's you doing it.
This is like the movie Ghost.
Yeah.
When Patrick Swayze enters Whoopi's body and starts touching all over Demi Moore.
Yes. But then there's like that maybe you're on the phone or however it works with the partner, so you can hear them and then they're sort of touching you even though they're not. I can see like someone using that as a way to get by until whatever, but any other way that's still weird. But I at least like there's still a two-way intimacy in one way or another, Well,
right. You mentioned Blade Runner 2049, similar situation there, where you're just there's a body there being used as a vehicle, and or an instrument by someone else. So yeah, I could see people doing something like that. I mean, I think the virtual reality world is gonna blow up way more in this realm.
It's almost like altered carbon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet the other day that said something like AI sex bot is going to 3D print a gun.
Yes,
and we're
I
all
sent that to you.
Something like that. You sent it to me. Several people sent it to me. What does that say about me?
Well, I mean, definitely. Like I like talking about these. Like I think every year on Podtoberfest, I've had an AI sex bot or some type of story. Yeah. And I think even way back when we first started 7 Days a Geek, Oz would always bring on a weird story. But to me, it's always sort of it's a fun topic to discuss.
It is, and Neil and I, whenever I think, okay, we've covered every angle of this. Some new story comes out, and I'm like, well, I guess we didn't really talk about it from this aspect. So we start talking about it again. So it just seems to keep coming up. And it's funny because anytime there's some sort of sex bot thing or any sort of fear of technology thing, I think a lot of times people forward that to me and go, oh no, you're shitting your pants, aren't you? And I'm like, kinda, yeah.
Isn't it good like when you've got that part of your show where you've done it enough where like the listeners think of you and send you more things?
Right.
Like,
I guess I'm doing something right.
You probably want to be remembered for far more topics than sex bots, but you know, there's a start.
That'll be on my podcast tombstone for sure. He was intrigued by sex bots, but feared drones. Oh man. So Neil isn't here this week, but he sent me.
He's not.
He sent me a question, obviously, but he's just lurking behind me. Do you see him back there?
Surprise!
He wouldn't have been able to be quiet that long. No way.
Very true.
He had a question he sent for you. He said, "When are you going to stop sending me dick pics?" No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that.
Oh,
he said he said, "Never" is the answer. He said, "What's the biggest difference between podcasting now and when you started?" So he's giving you a total podcasting 101 question. Because you started, for anybody who doesn't know, 10 years ago.
It'll be 10 years at the end of this month. Yeah,
damn,
August 28th.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Which there was a gap in there where I didn't podcast for like a year or so, but I mean I started 10 years ago, so yes,
right.
I've been podcasting like consistently for it's like 7 or 8, I think 7 or 8 years. Yeah. So yeah, I would say I used to get nervous, especially like I would always either have to have like a shit or a piss beforehand or something.
That's a common thing for athletes.
Yes, and
get the nerves before a game.
Now I just come down and sit down and talk.
Yeah,
it's not difficult to holes in content, and it's really comfortable when you've been podcasting for someone who's done it for a while themselves, because you can carry your own show, I can carry my own show, so it's
right.
Well, I mean, some will argue whether I'm good at that or not, but I feel like I can carry a show. So
for sure.
So I think it's easy when you get two people together to just go, and it's always easy to just guest at this point. You're like, oh, I just have to show up and read your AI story, and
right.
we're gonna talk Star Wars. Like, that wasn't difficult for us to do. So,
right,
yeah.
and I don't have to do any editing or posting or anything. I just go away, and then at some point it's going to be on. Great,
it's magic. But yeah, I think that's probably the big difference. The big difference is there used to be a lot of discussion beforehand. I would really like, okay. And I don't think the content has changed too much. I just think it's easier for me to put a show together. It's easy for me, instead of having 4 pages of Google Docs. I can just write down a couple of topics, and a lot of it just comes off of my head. And I'm not nervous at all anymore. I think the only time I'll probably ever be nervous again podcasting is probably if I do it live, like in front of a bunch of people. And I think that would probably be just strange at first, because I've never actually had people stare at me doing it. But I think once I got into the groove, like when we were at Podcast Movement, I did a live show. We did a live show. There were people walking through the lobby and everything, but and some of the people I knew would come up and be like, how you doing? That wasn't very strange like that.
Well, yeah, because you see some of the not even huge shows, but medium sized, big, fairly big shows, whatever, go tour, and they go.
I would love to do that.
And that's just that would make me nervous for sure. To try to do that in front of a live audience would be a little bit crazy. Because I mean, we tried doing the YouTube thing, and I mean, Neil still does it with Annalise. They definitely still do it.
Yes,
they still do their show on YouTube, and we did it for a while. And I was nervous at first about it just because it's so live. I mean, we've done a couple Mixer things live, which is another level, because it's immediate. But with the video too, there's like, everybody can see everything you're doing, so it's a little bit different. And I got used to that fairly quickly. For me, it was just because we had there's just so much interference with the chat room. And if you don't have a producer, it's extremely hard to keep tabs on all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was like, I can't do this anymore. I feel like it's making me suck at hosting a show. You know what I mean?
It is. It's easier to stay focused when you don't have all of those things going on at the same time, because you have to pay attention to the video or the chat room, or then your audio and I guess, like, I would be very
conscious.
Yeah, self-conscious. I would be very self-conscious about just being on video, because that's not my strong suit. I don't think. I have a face for radio, is what they say. So
that's what I say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. But so you're in general, you're just more comfortable. You were nervous at first, and you're it's a piece of cake. Yeah. As far as the landscape goes, I mean, so many things have changed, so it's hard to kind of summarize that, I'm sure, because I mean, where you were when you started. I think I remember hearing you and Grant talk about going and getting like a book, like how to podcast.
I did. I figured it all out.
Yeah, and getting like the mic that said podcasting mic on it and shit like that. All the dumb mistakes you make, because you're like, sure. And then you later realize, like, oh, it's certainly not cheap to put all that equipment together, but it's not outrageous. Like you can piece together a decent setup and have some pretty good audio just if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it is, and it's not expensive. You're right. I would say starting out, like, I surrounded myself with friends, so it's much easier to sit around a table and just have a conversation, because you know who you're talking to, kind of what you're comfortable talking to them about and what they're going to respond with. So that makes it easier. Like when I started going on my own, especially doing podcasting 101 and having to do the intros and outros and everything without anyone there, that was uncomfortable. But now I'm just used to all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you feel like when I've just done the occasional bit where either I'm recording something for someone or have done an intro to set something up, and just doing that, I have to do a few takes, because I'll be like either talking too fast, or I'll miss one word and be like, that was terrible. You know what I mean? Like I get so self-aware of what I'm saying, more so than when you're having a conversation, there's gaps to fill by another person talking. So I think it's so useful. I don't know how people do the solo show. It's got to be brutal.
You know what? You get used to it, just like you got used to podcasting with your buddy, and like, you had to get used to podcasting with Neil, and then you do. Like, I felt like an asshole the first couple times. I'm sitting here down in my studio by myself, and, no one to talk to or look at, or I'm like, oh, stupid. And then you just sort of get comfortable with it.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and for filling in for
This is a blast.
I've been wanting to have you on for a long time. You and I have done, I don't know, maybe like a half a dozen times we've podcasted together, something like that. And I hope we get to do, a lot more in the future. I'm excited for Podtoberfest, and I'm thankful that you always include me because it's always a fun time.
Oh yeah.
But you know what I think we forgot to say at the top of the show, so you can say now, is where everybody can find you.
Oh, the easiest place to find me is if you want to find me on social media, Twitter. I'm on Twitter all the time. It's S7EVEN Days a Geek. And Monkey Poo Studios. You can find everything there. Go to monkeypoostudios.com. All the shows there, the Twitter accounts, Facebook. You can find anything you need right there.
Yeah, and I highly recommend all of his shows. There's so many different angles being covered there. Whether it's the Deconstructing Dad podcast is great for somebody who's going through parenthood, single parenthood, all those types of things. There's a lot of great topics covered there, and 7 Days of Geeks kind of all over the board, and is a lot of fun. And like I already said about Podcasting 101, there's just so many good nuggets of information and so many good things if you're a podcaster, especially, that are good to hear and are relatable. So definitely go check out all those shows. Thank you very much for listening to our show. You can find us at reasonsareseveral.com. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, etc. Tweet at us at reasonsare. Neil is at angelsfreak7. We will have another guest next week, and then Neil will be back in 2 weeks. So tune into us then. Thanks again, Jay.
Thank you. Neil, I miss you. Can't wait to hear you again.
He misses you, I bet. Bye.